Netflix are a real bunch of cunts, aren't they? I'd love for them to play that. They're not going to play that.
All right, let me get your coffee.
I'm just going to do like a bit of a swap.
What do you want, like an espresso?
Yeah. Last year, I took a gamble and switched teams. Everyone was like, why are you leaving Red Bull? A lot of people kind of asking questions. See that expression? I'll go fuck yourself. Yeah. That one. Obviously, I spoke to a few teams. There was definitely talks with McLaren.
Fucking stupid. Unbelievable.
But I guess the truth is I hadn't seen enough to convince me that it was going to get better. With Renault, I saw the momentum they've had since 2016 and it's had a really strong 2018. That was a big attraction for me. I looked at their plan and when I kind of had everything on the table in front of me, the Renault one encouraged me and convinced me more. I took a chance, but also they made a big gamble signing me.
Carlos ahí al lado de Isa. Sí, ¿no?
Los pulpos que se pescan aquí son
Carlos,
pesqueros
¿tienes
primero.
Sí, estamos chico, chica.
Todos queremos gazpacho.
Sí, pues el año pasado.
Alguien va a querer mí, ¿no?
¿Quién quiere?
Vamos aquí en gazpacho.
I've been coming to Mallorca since I'm 0 years old. It's very Spanish way just to spend the summer break with your cousins, with your uncles, grandparents, your sisters, your family. Here everyone is totally relaxed.
Está muy buena, Reyes.
No, no, no.
¿Qué tal está, tía Carmen?
Muy bueno.
Sí,
Está muy buena, tía
a mí me
Reyes.
sabe como a pescado fuerte. Every professional athlete needs their own time where you can actually relax a bit and disconnect from the outside world and work, basically. But the 2018 summer was a bit different.
2018 was a bit of a weird season for Carlos because he drove for Renault. By June, July, all this silly season starts with the driver's market.
And the knock-on effect of Ricciardo moving to Renault means Carlos Sainz will lose his seat.
See ya.
Bye.
We got a call from Cyril saying, look, we just signed Ricciardo, that leaves you out of the team.
¿Dónde hay más peces? ¿De la plataforma afuera o dentro?
Yo creo que hacia adentro.
I was heard that the Renault car that I had been driving that year, it was obviously taken by someone else.
We didn't really know what was going to happen in the future.
Yo estoy listo, eh. My main scare was not staying in Renault, you know, it was staying in Formula One. For me, it was 100%. Like, I need to have a seat, I will have a seat.
It was quite intense because we were always on the phone, always on the email, speaking to all the teams.
Yo a las 7 ya no fallo, eh.
But then suddenly things started to fall in place. Why not take the challenge and go for it?
Joder, buen mero. Bueno, ya tenemos una.
3, 2, 1. Big thanks to the new driver lineup from McLaren.
It's a great honor to be here. It's something special, so I really want to thank everyone.
We got to know Carlos, moved very quick, and very happy to have him as a McLaren Grand Prix driver.
Everyone in here works unbelievably hard. Everyone has contributed to this race car. Collectively, us as a group, we're all going to get back to where I know we should be, can be, and have been, and hope to do it soon.
2018, I don't think we designed a very good race car.
We have all got the points.
So by the end of the year, we were about the 8th, 9th quickest team.
Fucking stupid.
Not another problem for McLaren.
We wouldn't have put Carlos in our race car if we didn't think he was extremely fast. So even though he's only 24 years old, he's done a lot of Grand Prix. And so he's got a great blend of youth and aggression, but yet, mature. That's what we really need to get back to winning races.
Hey guys.
Where are we going, down or are we walking around? Straight around?
Would you guys do the Renault hunt last year? It was nothing special. It's nothing to do with what you guys have here, to be honest. No. Not as much. No.
Fanfare?
Definitely no.
Looks good.
It looks really good.
Give me one of those. I'll take 2 of those.
Yeah. And it's year by year?
Yeah, by year, yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the first time I went there, the first thing that came to my mind was how these guys cannot be winning. McLaren last year, they had probably one of their worst seasons in Formula 1, if not the worst. Hey guys. Shall I practice my entrance like yesterday? Ronaldo, what? There's the car.
Our goals for 2019 have to be to take a step forward. We had to make a lot of changes, which we did. Now we've got 2 great drivers in Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, and it gets along with Lando very well. They're very competitive with each other, but in a healthy way.
High five, everyone.
Same, but very.
Imagine if I get left hanging. Mind check.
It would be a good start to our season together.
I'm not ready. My heart started beating.
It's a big risk for Carlos moving to McLaren, and not just because of McLaren's recent troubles. If he can rebuild that team, I think it would do his reputation a lot of good. But if it doesn't work out for him, he could get buried by the entire experience.
Ready in 30 seconds.
You always have doubts. You wonder, well, what if McLaren is still 17th, 16th fastest? What's going to happen with me? Like, people are going to start forgetting about me.
You're going to do it. Do what?
But for me, a new year is a new start. And really try to forget about the doubts.
On the shores of the Caspian Sea are the streets of Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, and round 4 of the Formula 1 World Championship of 2019.
I'm trying to smile, show positivity.
Radiate positivity.
Radiate positivity.
Well, I think, Carlos's first couple races, he's had, bad luck. The results have been a mixed bag.
Tonight we'll be celebrating 100%. Hey guys. Nothing happened. If you get a podium, will you jump in? If I get a podium, I don't know what I'd do, mate. I say it's time to turn things around. even if I know it hasn't been my fault, just make it happen, you know, just whatever I need to do, just do it.
Alrighty. Which way is it? I love coming here. Baku is a high-speed street circuit. This track creates just amazing racing. It's so intense. But really with Renault, so far in the season, like we haven't achieved what we wanted to.
This season has been probably the most challenging experience in my career so far.
And Daniel Ricciardo losing his front wing going into turn 1.
Everything just cut out.
Every single race weekend, something happened to us which had a negative impact on the results.
Daniel Ricciardo's Renault career hasn't started that well, has it?
Hinges in your thoracics.
First couple races this season were, you know, not the way I wanted to start, you know, my account with Renault.
Get some speed in. Get into the appropriate intensity. Nice, mate.
Moving teams is always tricky, particularly when they've spent so much of their career in one place. I think Daniel knew that moving to Renault would prove to be a challenge, but I don't think he anticipated these early races would be as hard as they've been.
It's time for qualifying, an hour of flat-out driving on the streets of Baku.
Okay, and at the moment you're clear from traffic behind.
Okay.
This is it. He's got one lap to shine.
How are we looking at? And you're currently P11, 500ths from Norris.
I'm still not there yet with this car. Everything is different to the Red Bull, the brakes, the throttle, the feeling on the pedal. It's everything. All that being said, it's still a race car. You can drive it still nearly with your eyes closed, but to drive it on the limit and to really gel and understand the car, that then takes a bit more time.
Ricciardo crosses the line, and it says 12th fastest, slowest of the 12 drivers that we have had so far.
P12.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost the rear quite early in the lap.
Ricciardo doesn't seem as confident on the brakes of a Renault yet as he did in a Red Bull.
Daniel Ricciardo is one of the best drivers in Formula One and a proven race winner, but that's not a silver bullet for a car that in and of itself doesn't have the capability of winning races.
I still know I can get a lot more out of it. There's still some areas I can improve on brake points, for sure.
Here's Carlos Sainz, still yet to score a point for McLaren so far this season, and looking a little bit on the back foot coming into this qualifying session.
I think it's one of those situations in this sport where you're feeling comfortable, you're feeling great at the wheel, but there's just one final thing, which is a result.
Thank you, Carlos. You are currently P12.
Oh, it's not a good lap. Even though we knew Carlos was very quick, I think anytime a new driver gets in your car, they need to prove themselves.
Okay, mate, we finished P11, P11.
Ah! So frustrating. It's so fucking frustrating.
You know, some drivers move to teams and they excel, and then you see them sometimes move to teams and then fall short of expectations.
Mala suerte, tío. Joder, siempre igual, tío.
Thank you. Thanks. No worries.
Ricardo, that was not. I think that qualifying session was not good.
Yeah, you should have thrown some banana peels at my rivals.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's been nearly a year since I had a podium, and it feels like it's been a while. I felt like my best was good enough for 12th place. It's obviously not where we want to be, but Baku is crazy and anything can happen. I've had massive highs and lows here. 2018 was one of the big kind of controversial moments of that season. 2017, I won the race. So I've certainly had all sorts of emotions here. Hopefully my experience pays off tomorrow.
Daniel Ricciardo, he is the lead Renault now and having a much better day of it.
Yes. Okay, nice job. P10, P10.
Now here comes one McLaren on another. Carlos Sainz on Lando Norris. Sainz is now the lead McLaren.
He's looking very strong. Let's get Magnussen now. Nice for me. Okay, so next car on the road is Fiat, 3.5 ahead.
Daniel Ricciardo's got himself up to 8.
4 tenths quicker than Fiat ahead. Gained 9 tenths on Fiat that last lap. Okay, you've overtaken Renault, and you'll get DRS on Fiat now. Understood.
Here comes Ricciardo, king of the late breakers. Can he do it to Kvyat? No, he's off. This is costing him a lot of time. And he's just reversed into Kvyat. Things go from bad to worse for the unlucky Renault team.
I didn't see it. Something feels loose on that box.
Oh, Ricciardo's going to have to retire, I think, from this race.
We're switching off, please. Sorry, guys.
Okay, Carlos, that's Grosjean in front. So Carlos, this is good so far, this is good. P7, there's 2 laps to go, 2 laps to go. And this will be the last lap, this will be the last lap. That's the checkered flag, well done, P7.
Come on, boys.
Yes.
Vale, off the mark.
Bien.
Ya era hora, coño, ya era hora.
Oh, about time. First points of the year for him. 7th was a good result. Yeah, the feeling was a bit of relief.
Sólido, tío, que es sólido.
That felt like a long time coming.
That was good, better. Needed that. Good work, guys.
Baku was exactly what I needed. A bit of a good result, you know, to get my season going. And a bit of a relief that, but like you call it, I call it things not going towards me, ended there.
Unlucky, mate.
Obviously, I feel embarrassed and I feel like an idiot. I felt like I had a bit of a responsibility to give everyone a smile Sunday night. And it just turned into shit, basically. I'm feeling like the smallest guy in the whole of F1, so yeah.
To be honest, as soon as I went off, I was like, what's the rest? I just said, no, it's under the same. I didn't think
How's your game going to be today?
I don't know, mate. This would start me off strong.
Oh, shit! He's on today. With Michael, we have a good relationship.
Corby.
Trainer, performance coach, whatever the title is.
Since that long one. I'll go a bit closer, try and get my confidence up. That's it.
It's definitely not just physical training, you know, and you need a friend because we travel so much together. Someone you can really open up to. Someone who's happy to hear my shit after a long week. Feed me.
We met, I think, when we were around 11 years old.
Oh! What do you mean, no?
And we've been friends ever since.
All right, let's go do a bit of a stretch. See if you can touch.
Just forget the camel toe here.
Daniel is obviously a joker.
Way off, you're not touching nothing.
I feel something on my bum.
Yeah, it's not the ground.
But there also is Daniel Ricciardo, the racer. He is definitely a serious competitor.
Loosen up those hips.
It's extremely important to be in the right headspace when you jump in that car. So the psychological factor is huge. It makes a big difference come race day for sure.
The whole Red Bull thing. I discussed the move with Michael, the choice, looking at McLaren, and I'm not bitter towards, you know, McLaren for doing well because it was my decision.
McLaren look quick, mate. And Carlos is just, he's been good.
Cheers, Carl. I feel like we've been quite unlucky, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm angry at myself because I'm always like, I can do better. Yeah.
Mate, there's no point in dwelling on it. I think like your attitude's been good, mate. Like you've just been fierce, you've been competitive. Take it as it is and just keep working, keep building. Try building some more points on in Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Behind.
We go for chicken fajitas. Whoa, it's cold.
I knew McLaren was going to need me in the UK. We had a lot of work to do.
Who is doing the guacamole?
I'm doing the guacamole, mate.
You know, for guacamole, you need lime.
Ready?
Where's the fajita mixed? It's not here. I'm gonna be depressed. It has to be here.
Excuse me, we do have special fajita sauce, El Paso style. He's really, really keen on. Here we go, mate.
You have it?
I'm sorry to break this to you. They might only have their own brand.
Then we need to go somewhere else. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
This is not hard to find the car, is it?
No.
Where does the shopping go?
Where's the fucking boot?
You must have a smaller button.
You carry it, come on.
It's my job, right?
Morning. How are you, dude? How many people are attending the performance review?
Many drivers have asked me, why do you spend so much time in McLaren? Are you forced to go there? The way I apply the brake pressure, Yes, the smooth application instead of being a bit more punchy. People underestimate the relationship with the engineers, how important it is. Yeah, we're going just now. Thank you, mate. It will show itself on track, and then it will pay off. Hola.
All right, mate.
All good?
Good. How's it going? All right? Don't I feel too tight?
Monday to Fridays in the UK, I'm sleeping well, eating well, training, dieting, and I need to focus a lot in that.
As a coach, you're trying to obviously take them out of their comfort zone to basically ensure that when they need to get in the car, that they can perform at their best. Carlos is always really looking at ways that he can improve himself.
That will give me the confidence to go to a Formula 1 track, knowing that I'm working more than anyone else in Formula 1.
For king of the midfield, McLaren now have a surprise lead over troubled Renault.
Get in the zone, mate.
Yeah.
Ready for a bit of a dogfight?
Yeah, fucking nice.
Good man. Fucking hard, so am I. All right, let's do it.
As far as, our midfield battle goes, Carlos has been a bit luckier at times, so that creates a bit more tension in the rivalry. I put a lot into this, and I don't travel around the world and work this hard to, not see the checkered flag. This is my moment to really go out when those lights go out and be as good as I can be. Let's race hard. May the best man win.
My period in Renault is totally closed, and I don't see that yellow car as my car and someone else driving it. I want to prove to McLaren and Renault that of the midfield I am the strongest driver. I don't think anyone is better than me, but Daniel thinks he's the best. We all think we are the best. Out of all these battles that are happening here, I want to be on top.
Okay, Carlos, we're ready to check.
Yeah, maybe it's good.
Copy, that's land clear.
Radio check. Radio check. Let's fucking have it, boys.
Let's go for it, Daniel.
10 seconds.
Good job. Pace is okay, pace is okay. Ricciardo looks quick, keep him behind if you can.
Carlos is struggling on pace at the moment.
Okay, so definitely got more speed.
Ricciardo trying to get past Carlos Sainz. Moves to the inside to cover off Ricciardo. He knew an attack was coming there.
Okay, Carlos, good job defending. Try and keep him behind.
That's right, that's right.
Gained 9/10 on Carlos that last lap, so overtake is available.
Understood.
Ricciardo is squeezing everything out of the Renault now to try and get past Carlos Sainz. That's Ricciardo through!
Lucky me.
Renault have overtaken McLaren.
Okay, I'll box this lap.
Okay, understood. Boxing.
Box now, box now.
We pitted one behind each other. And the first lap was gonna be all about trying to get past Daniel again.
Watch out for Sainz behind you. He's also just left the box.
Understood.
Gap to Ricciardo now 1.9. This is good, Carlos. Better than him. We're in good shape now.
That's better.
Renault is struggling.
Right, let's go and get him, Carlos.
Sainz in your DRS.
And the roles are reversed. Sainz back ahead of Daniel Ricciardo.
Come on, boys. Yes. He caught on to me so quickly, I really couldn't do much else.
Okay, still a long way to go. Let's stay focused. Let's get back into a rhythm.
Okay, Carlos, good job.
That overtake move from Daniel gave us the confidence. After that moment, I said, maybe we can attack a bit more.
Okay, Carlos, that's Grosjean in front.
Sainz is in the points, but hungry for more.
Copy, copy. Pressure's okay at the moment.
We're side to side, he cannot turn in like that.
He's just got time for one last go at Grosjean.
Come on.
Vamos!
Bien! That's great job, Carlos. Great job.
Carlos Sainz is up into 8th place.
Yes, Carlos, get in. Great job, mate.
Yeah, that's P12. Sorry, man. Tough one.
Yeah, understood. It's really hard to stay close with Sainz. Sorry, guys.
Carlos Sainz, another finish in the points and giving his grandstand reason to get on their feet.
Bravo, bravo! Oh, that was fun.
Thank you.
I always said it, you know, I think it was more a matter of time. Deep in myself, I knew what I needed to do to be quick.
Well done, mate. Good job. Well done.
I have the feeling that McLaren knows what they are doing, and I'm gonna trust it.
Well done. Fucking amazing.
That was good. Good race. Good. Good job, guys.
Carlos has been very impressive, like his aggression, like his speed.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
He hasn't put a wheel wrong, and I could see him being with McLaren for quite some time.
I was a bit frustrated with how the race panned out. Yeah, I've had a few battles with Carlos, but the McLarens have turned it on, and they've certainly been our kind of midfield target this year. They've got a pretty good car. I need to be smart and use my strengths as a driver to kind of work around maybe some of the weaknesses on the car. I expected myself to get it quicker.
There is no real question about the capacity of Daniel to be a strong driver. I feel that the team is ready for Daniel. We are ready for that partnership. We just need to work harder and give him a better car so that he can bring that team to a different dimension.
Formula One racing is very much like war planning. Let's crush them.
Yes!
is feeling sore, heart is racing.
Fuck, das gibt's doch nicht! It was a fucking shit day in the office.
Come on, Geraldine, you'll be late for your own fucking concert.
Hello.
Who the fuck are you?
Pierre Gasly got off to a horrible start.
Fuck!
We will give Alex Albon a run.
It's like an F1 car on steroids.
They stepped out of the limousine to a smattering of highly confused applause. A man in a cheap, shiny gray suit rushed up to them, sweating profusely. Ah, the trotters! Brilliant, brilliant, the man babbled, shaking those hand vigorously. I'm Dave, Discount Dave, the manager. Listen, slight change of plan. The local paper couldn't make it, but we've got a bloke with a Polaroid camera. Now, here's the scissors. Dave shoved a pair of rusty garden shears into those hands. Right, let's get this over with, Del muttered, marching up to the red ribbon strung across the automatic sliding doors. He turned to the crowd, flashing his million-watt smile. Ladies and gentlemen of Croydon, Del announced loudly, it gives me great pleasure to declare this magnificent establishment open for business. He squeezed the rusty shears. They didn't cut the ribbon. They merely bent it in half. Del grunted, trying again. The shears jammed. Give it here. Rodney sighed. Stepping up, he grabbed the ribbon with both hands and simply yanked it. The ribbon tore with a loud rip, and the automatic doors hissed open. The crowd of elderly women immediately surged forward, completely ignoring Del and Rodney, trampling over their polished shoes in a desperate stampede toward a display of deeply discounted baked beans. Watch the suit. Watch the camel hair. Del shouted, being violently pushed against a rack of cheap garden gnomes. As the dust settled and the trotters retreated to the safety of the pavement, Trigger wandered out of the shop, casually holding a new broom handle. All right, Dave, Trigger nodded to Rodney. Nice opening. Got a bargain on this handle. 50 pence. Del straightened his tie, breathing heavily. He looked at Discount Dave, who was busy ringing up baked beans on a cash register. Right, Dave, Del called out. That's the ribbon cut. We'll take our 300 quid now, in cash if you please. Discount Dave looked up, confused. 300. Mate, the contract was for 30 quid, and you get a free multi-pack of toilet roll. Del froze. He looked at Rodney. Justin negotiated this. Rodney asked quietly, I'm going to sack that biographer, Del growled, snatching the toilet roll multipack from Dave's hands and marching back to the rusted limousine. I am going to sack him, and then I am going to sell his dictaphone to Monkey Harris. Chapter 22. The Rival Novelist. The indignity of the pawn shop opening was slightly softened by the arrival of the first royalty check from the Peckham Phoenix book sales. It was a substantial amount, enough to officially upgrade the cigar brand and allow Rodney to buy a briefcase that hadn't been previously used to smuggle counterfeit watches. However, success breeds resentment, and in Peckham, nobody held a grudge quite like Aubrey Boyke Boyce. Boyke had watched the Trotters rise, fall, and rise again with a mixture of sheer disbelief and burning jealousy. He was the successful one. He had the car dealership. He had the detached house. Why were people suddenly asking for Derek Trotter's autograph down at the pub? It's an outrage, Marlene, Boyke complained one evening, pacing the plush carpet of his living room. The man is a certified bankrupt, a peddler of radioactive spoons, and the BBC treats him like he's Winston Churchill. Oh, leave it out, Boyke, Marlene sighed, painting her nails. The book is funny. You laughed at the television show yourself. I laughed out of pity. Boyke sniffed. It's all lies. Anyway, if the public really wants to know the truth about Peckham, they need a refined, educated perspective. They need the perspective of a prominent local businessman. And so, fueled by spite and a massive ego, Boyke decided to write his own book. He didn't bother with a ghostwriter or a biographer like Justin. Boyke locked himself in his study for 3 weeks, typing furiously on a typewriter, determined to expose the Trotters and elevate himself as the true king of South London. A month later, Boyke walked into the Nag's Head carrying a cardboard box with an air of immense superiority. Del and Rodney were sitting at their usual table. Del was trying to explain to Trigger why the BBC hadn't cast a real road sweeper in the television show. Ah, Derek, Boyke sneered, dropping the heavy box onto the table. I thought you might like to see this. The literary landscape is about to experience a seismic shift. Del looked at the box, then up at Boyke. What's this? Boyke, have you finally published the instruction manual for rolling back odometers? Boyke let out his machine gun laugh. He. Very droll. No, Derek, I have self-published my memoirs. It's an honest, unflinching look at the real Peckham. He reached into the box and pulled out a remarkably thin, cheaply bound paperback. The cover featured a highly airbrushed photo of Boyke standing next to an E-Type Jaguar, looking smug. The title read, The Boyce Supremacy, How I Built an Empire While Around Me Fools Played. Rodney choked on his beer. The Boyce Supremacy? You sound like a Jason Bourne villain. It's called Gravitas. Rodney, Boyke sniffed. I had 5,000 copies printed. I'm expecting a call from Waterstones any day now. I just wanted to drop off a complimentary copy so you can see what real literature looks like. He tossed the thin book onto the table and swaggered over to the bar. Dell picked up the book, turning it over in his hands. He opened it to the first page and began to read silently. After 10 seconds, his shoulders started to shake. After 20 seconds, he let out a loud snort. "What is it?" Rodney asked, leaning over. "Listen to this," Dell wheezed, wiping a tear from his eye. Chapter 1, The Dawn of Greatness. From the moment I sold my first Austin Allegro, I knew I was destined to walk among the gods of commerce. I looked out over the forecourt, the smell of cheap pine air freshener filling my nostrils, and I whispered to the wind, "I am Aubrey Boyce." Rodney groaned. "It's worse than I thought. It's unreadable." For the next 3 weeks, Boyke's self-published masterpiece became the biggest running joke in the estate. He had tried to sell them at his car dealership, offering a free copy with every set of floor mats, but people kept leaving them behind on the passenger seats. The local news agent refused to stock them, citing a lack of shelf space and a lack of general interest in Boyke's opinions on the 1983 Vauxhall Maestro. Eventually, the reality of self-publishing caught up with Boyke. He was stuck with 4,985 unsold copies of The Boyce Supremacy, taking up valuable space in his garage. That was when Del Boy, sensing an opportunity for both profit and petty revenge, paid Boyke a visit. "All right, Boyke," Del smiled, strolling into the car showroom. "I hear the literary career has hit a bit of a speed bump. The reading public not quite ready for your genius?" Boyke glared at him from behind his desk. "The public are Philistines, Derek. They prefer cheap laughs to genuine entrepreneurial insight. What do you want?" "I've come to do you a favor," Del said generously. "I know you've got nearly 5,000 of those paperweights clogging up your garage. I'm willing to take them off your hands. Clear the space for you." Boyke narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Why? You're not going to read them." "Of course I'm not going to read them. I'm not a masochist," Del laughed. "But I've got a mate, Denzel, who's doing a bit of contract work on a new housing estate in Catford. They've run out of loft insulation. Now, paper is a brilliant insulator, and your book, Boyke, is so dense it's practically thermal." Boyke's face turned purple. "You want to use my life's work as loft insulation? It's a noble calling. Keeping the good people of Catford warm through the winter months with your hot air?" Del grinned. "I'll give you a penny a book. Take it or leave it." Defeated, humiliated, and desperate for the garage space, Boyke accepted the deal. The next day, Trotter's independent traders made a tidy profit of £200 by selling for 1,000 copies of The Boyce Supremacy to Denzel's foreman. As Del watched Denzel's lorry drive away, packed to the brim with Boyke's ego, He patted Rodney on the back. See, Rodders, in business, nothing goes to waste, not even bad literature. Chapter 23, the next big thing. Winter had settled firmly over London. The novelty of the television sitcom had begun to fade slightly, replaced in the public consciousness by a new reality show involving minor celebrities eating bugs in a jungle. The royalty checks were still trickling in, but Cassandra, in her infinite wisdom and banking experience, had forced Dell and Rodney to put the bulk of the money into a locked, high-yield trust fund. It's for your own good, Cassandra had insisted during a particularly tense family dinner. If I let Derek have access to the capital, we'll end up with a garage full of voice-activated Scottish toasters and demonic dolls again. As a result, Trotter's independent traders found themselves slightly cash poor in the day-to-day operations. The hustle had to continue. We need a fast turnaround, Rodders, Dell muttered one frosty morning, standing in the kitchen of flat 368. He was holding a large, empty plastic bottle that had once contained cheap cider. Rodney, who was trying to eat a bowl of cereal without the aid of a radioactive spoon, watched his brother warily. "What are you doing with that bottle, Dell?" Dell held it up to the fluorescent kitchen light. "I am looking at the future, Rodney. The health and wellness industry. People are obsessed with it. They want purity. They want nature. They want Lodi Peckham." Rodney stopped chewing. "Water? You want us to sell water?" "Not just any water, you plonker," Dell chided, walking over to the kitchen sink and turning on the cold tap. "I'm talking about premium, artisan, organically sourced spring water, direct from the pristine aquifers of the French Alps." He shoved the empty cider bottle under the running tap, filling it to the brim. "Dell, that is Southwark Council tap water," Rodney pointed out, stating the blindingly obvious. "It tastes mildly of chlorine and old pipes." "Ah, but that's where the marketing comes in." Dell beamed, turning off the tap and slamming a cheap cork into the top of the bottle. "We print some fancy labels with a picture of a snowy mountain on it. We give it a French name, Chateau de la Cinque. We sell it to those trendy new wine bars in the West End for quid a pop." Rodney put his head on the table, perilously close to his cornflakes. "It's illegal, Dell. It's fraud. And besides, people will know it's tap water." "Nonsense," Dell declared, grabbing a tea towel and aggressively polishing the bottle. "People only taste what the price tag tells them to taste. If we charge for a quid, they'll think it's the tears of an angel. Mange tout, Rodney. Mange tout." Rodney lifted his head and looked at his older brother. Dell was standing there in his tiger print dressing gown, a gold chain gleaming against his chest, passionately defending the idea of selling tap water in used cider bottles. They had been on television. They had written a best-selling book. they had held millions of pounds in their hands. But as Rodney looked around the cramped, peeling walls of Nelson Mandela House, he realized that the core of their existence would never truly change. The money came and went like the tide, but the hustle was eternal. Rodney couldn't help it. A slow, resigned smile spread across his face. "All right, Del," Rodney sighed, picking up his spoon. "But I'm not drawing the snowy mountains on the labels this time. My trees always look like green triangles. Don't worry about the artwork, Rodders. I've got Damien on it. He's a natural with a Crayola." Del winked, setting the bottle of tap water proudly on the table as if it were a vintage bottle of Dom Perignon. Del walked over to the window, looking out over the sprawling, gray concrete of the Peckham estate. The morning sun was just beginning to break through the clouds, casting a faint, golden light over the city. He took a deep breath of the cold London air, feeling the familiar thrill of the chase rising in his chest. "You know, Rodders," Del said softly, a massive, unshakable grin lighting up his face. Rodney smiled, already knowing the words before they were spoken. "What's that, Del?" Del Boy turned back to his brother, the eternal optimist, the Peckham Phoenix, ready to rise from the ashes yet again. "This time next year, we'll be millionaires. The sky's the limit, a Trotter Odyssey, based on the chronicles of Derek and Rodney Trotter. Chapter 1, The Ghost of Millions Past." The sun used to set differently in Miami. Back then, it wasn't just a celestial body sinking into the horizon. It was a golden coin, a 6.5 million pound sovereign being deposited into the vault of the Atlantic. Derek Del Boy Trotter remembered the feel of the silk shirts, the taste of the finest cognac that didn't come from a plastic bottle, and the way people looked at him not as a fly pitcher from Peckham, but as a business mogul. But that was then. Now, the sun was setting over the concrete monoliths of the Nelson Mandela House, and it looked more like a rusty copper, struggling to shine through the smog of South London. Del sat in the back of the yellow three-wheeled Reliant Regal, the engine coughing like a heavy smoker in a winter draft. He watched Rodney, his younger brother, staring out the window with a look of existential dread that had become his permanent expression since the stock market crash. "I'll fetch the suitcase from the van," Del muttered, though they weren't going anywhere. It was a reflex, a memory of a time when suitcases meant vacations in Barbados, not hiding from the Inland Revenue. "Rodney, you look like you've just found out the library's run out of books on bird watching," Del said, trying to inject some of that classic Trotter bravado into the stale air of the van. Rodney didn't turn. "I'm nervous. Del, this bloke we're going to see, Justin, is he going to be asking about things?" "Things? What things?" "My private life. Cassandra. The hiccups." Del rolled his eyes, adjusting his sheepskin coat, one of the few relics of his former glory that still fit. He's a professional. Rodney, he's not interested in your bedroom department. Besides, I told you in confidence it stays with me. I'm not going to be telling him about jiffins or what Cassandra wears when she's annoyed with you. You just mentioned them. Rodney hissed, his lanky frame unfolding as he stepped out onto the damp pavement. They were about to enter a world they hadn't visited in years, the world of accountability. The millions were gone, evaporated in a Central American market crash that had been as swift as it was brutal. They had gone from penthouse suites to the old flat in Peckham faster than a falling safe. As they walked toward the office of Justin, the man who would document their success and subsequent transition, Del felt a pang of nostalgia. He thought of Uncle Albert, who was currently living his best life down on the coast with Elsie Partridge, probably regaling her with tales of during the war for the 10,000th time. He thought of Raquel and little Damien. Life had been a carousel, and right now, the music had stopped, and they were stuck on the wooden horse that had lost its legs. Chapter 2. The Inquisition of a Traitor. The office was clinical. It smelled of floor wax and broken dreams. Justin sat behind a desk that probably cost more than those entire current inventory of digital watches. I've got the basic details, Justin said, peering over spectacles that made him look like a very judgmental owl. But I want the real you, the raison d'etre. Del leaned back, crossing his legs. Ah, laboratory Garney. Exactly. Rodney winced. He means reason for being. Del. Whatever. Del waved a hand. Where shall I start? Well, we were ordinary blokes. Until I found that watch. The Harrison Lesser watch. A masterpiece. A national treasure. Which you flogged, Justin noted. We preferred the term privatized for personal gain, Del corrected smoothly. 6.5 million quid. We divvied it up. Made sure Uncle Albert had a nice drink, a very large one, and then we thought of the future. We went to a stockbroker, Vibrant Ventures, Central American markets. We were making money faster than the Royal Mint. As Del spoke, the narrative in his head was a Technicolor epic. In reality, it had been a blur of champagne, bad investments, and a helicopter ride to Nice that had cost as much as a small house just to pick up some magazines. And then Justin prompted. Then Rodney took over, his voice dropping an octave. The negotiations collapsed. The market didn't just dip. It ceased to exist. We paid for the hotel on a credit card that was withdrawn while we were still at the breakfast buffet. We were in a financial wilderness. Del nodded solemnly. But I'm a creative businessman. I found a solution. The solution had involved a hasty exit, a lot of explaining to people in suits, and the realization that their old friends back in Peckham were the only ones who wouldn't turn their backs mostly because some of them, like Mike from the Nag's Head, had lost their own life savings in the same venture. Poor Mike, Del sighed, remortgaged the pub. Now he's in the nick, awaiting trial. The fraud squad thinks he was embezzling. Never was a man more innocent. He confessed. Rodney reminded him. A minor detail. He's a martyr to the cause of independent trading. Chapter 3, The Witnesses of Peckham. While Dell and Rodney were being interrogated by the ghost of their financial past, the Nag's Head was hosting a summit of a different kind. Denzel, the driver whose nerves were as frayed as a cheap rug, was pacing the floor. Sid, the landlord pro tem, who cooked eggs that could be used as lethal projectiles, was polishing a glass with a rag that hadn't seen a washing machine since the Thatcher era. And then there was Trigger. Trigger stood by the bar, staring at a pint of bitter as if it contained the secrets of the universe. "I'm worried," Denzel said, his voice trembling. "I've never been a character witness before. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I tell the truth?" "If you tell the truth," Sid grunted, "Dell and Rodney will be sharing a cell with Mike before the sun goes down." "I hear voices," Trigger said suddenly. The pub went silent. Denzel stopped pacing. "What did you say?" "Trig. I hear voices. I'm going to tell the judge. Maybe they'll let me off." "Trig," Sid sighed, "you're not the one on trial. You're a witness." "I know, but I still hear them. Mostly they tell me to buy a new broom, but I like the one I've got. It's had 17 new heads and 14 new handles." The logic of Peckham was a strange, circular thing. It was a place where bankruptcy wasn't a failure, but a temporary setback, a hiccup in the grand scheme of becoming millionaires, this time next NCM. But today was different. The inland revenue was circling. The Trotter empire, consisting of a flat, a van, and a collection of suspiciously branded electronics, was under siege. Chapter 4, A Wrong Turn at the Graveyard. The news of Uncle Albert's passing had hit them like a physical blow, or rather, the news of an Albert's passing. In the chaotic aftermath of the court case where Dell had been declared bankrupt and Rodney had been exonerated, mostly because the judge didn't think he was capable of masterminding a bake sale, let alone a multi-million-pound fraud, the family gathered to pay their respects. They stood in a quiet, leafy cemetery. Dell, Rodney, Raquel, Cassandra, and young Damien, who was currently trying to see if he could trigger a car alarm with his mind. "I feel bad," Dell whispered, his eyes moist, leaving him down there on the coast while we were off globetrotting. We should have taken him to Barbados. He didn't have a passport. Dell, Rodney reminded him. The man survived the Battle of the Baltic, but he couldn't navigate a post office application form. They approached the morning party. A woman named Marion was crying. A man named Roland looked grim. Derek and Rodney Trotter, Dell introduced them, shaking hands with a somber gravity. His nephews, from Peckham. "Oh," Marion sobbed. "He went on a bit, didn't he? Lovely old man. But the stories. We loved them." Dell insisted. the wartime sagas, the individual struggle for liberty. A lot of blokes lost their lives, so prats like Roland here could have the freedom to knock him. Roland looked confused. I didn't knock him. I just said he was a bit of a bore. How dare you? Dell shouted, his grief turning into a righteous fury. He was a hero. He was. Wait, why did you call him Bunny? Roland blinked, because that was his name in the RAF. Bunny Warren. The silence that followed was heavy. Rodney looked at the headstone, then at the coffin, then back at Dell. Dell, Rodney whispered, our Uncle Albert was in the Navy, and his name was Trotter. Dell looked at the grieving family. He looked at the Spitfire-shaped floral arrangement. Is that a Spitfire, Dad? Damien asked loudly. Ooh, Dell winced, the realization sinking in. We're at the wrong funeral. Run, Rodney suggested. Run, Dell agreed. Chapter 5, New Management, Old Tricks. Back at Nelson Mandela House, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of Raquel's cooking and the crushing weight of a £48,754 tax bill, plus interest. They'll take the flat, Dell, Raquel said, her voice steady, but her eyes worried. They'll auction it for a third of its price. Dell sat at the table, his mind working at the speed of a card shark's hands. No, they won't. I'm a trader. I've been trading since I was 12. I could sell rice to the Chinese. The firm's liquidated, Dell, Rodney said, leaning against the door frame. You're disqualified from running it. It's over. Not necessarily, Dell smirched. The firm can go on. It just needs a new managing director. Someone young, enthusiastic, someone full of ideas. Someone. He looked at Rodney. Rodney pointed to himself. The Wabbi. You want me to run Trotter's independent traders? Think about it, Rodney. Legally, there's nothing stopping you. You're clean. Mostly. We go to the lawyer. We make you the MD. Rodney Trotter, managing director, has a ring to it, doesn't it? And so the transition began. The Peckham Echo soon carried a small advertisement. Trotter's Independent Traders, now under new management. Managing director, Rodney Trotter. Consultancy and party planning. In the Nag's Head, Boyke read the ad and nearly choked on his large cognac. Managing director, Rodney, I've seen better management in a monkey house. But for the Trotters, it was a spark of hope. Rodney took to the role with a terrifying level of sincerity. He started listening to Mozart's Symphony No. 38 to ease his executive stress. He demanded that Cassandra answer the phone with a professional voice. Trotter's Independent Traders, how may I help you? Cassandra sighed into the receiver one evening, looking at Rodney, who was wearing a suit that was slightly too large for him. Yes, this is he, Rodney said, taking the phone with a flourish. Managing Director Rodney Trotter speaking. His face went pale. He looked at Dell. It's the representative of the Sultan of Brunei. Dell nearly fell off his chair. The Sultan, tell him we don't do windows on Fridays. He wants to consult with me, Rodney whispered. He bought a 3-wheeled van and wants to know how to start it on cold mornings. Dell's face dropped. Nicky Pierce, I'm going to kill that boy. Chapter 6, Fantasy Therapy and Failed Gambles. The stress of the bankruptcy and the new management was taking its toll on the brothers' relationships. Cassandra and Rodney were trying for a baby, but the hiccups remained. It's memory baggage, Rodney explained to Cassandra as they sat in a quiet restaurant. He had been reading a West Coast American magazine. Fantasy Therapy. We become different people. Reborn. Iconoclastic autosuggestion. Does this involve dressing up, Rodney? Cassandra asked, her suspicion piqued. Absolutely not. It's all up here. He tapped his temple. We create a make-believe world. An hour later, they were back at the flat. Rodney was wearing a gladiator outfit he'd found in a bargain bin at a costume shop, and Cassandra was dressed as a policewoman. You look scary, darling, Dell said, walking into the living room and freezing. He looked at Rodney. And you look like Spartacus with piles. It's a fancy dress party, Dell, Rodney yelled, trying to hide behind a Roman shield. We're going to a bank party. At 5 in the evening, Dell asked, reaching for a cigar. Well, you better hurry. Don't want to be late for the Centurion meeting. But Dell had his own plans. He had applied for a new game show, a show that promised to change their lives, a show called Gold Rush. Chapter 7, The Gold Rush. The lights of the BBC studio were blinding. Jonathan Ross stood center stage, his suits sharper than a razor blade. And finally, Jonathan announced to the cheering crowd, we have Derek Trotter from Peckham, a businessman who enjoys fine wines, the theater, and 16th century Italian Renaissance art. Dell stood there, a vision in a velvet blazer, waving to the cameras as if he were royalty. Back in the flat, Rodney, Cassandra, and Raquel watched the screen in stunned silence. He's going to do it, Raquel whispered. He's actually going to do it. Dell breezed through the early rounds. He knew that Kilimanjaro was in Africa. He knew that Fuji made cameras. He was on a roll. He was on the Rainbow Road. The 50,000 pounds question, Derek, Jonathan said, the music turning tens. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and the Enchantment? Was it Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Dell hesitated. His fine art knowledge was largely based on things he'd seen on the back of biscuit tins. I'll use my LS, Dell said. I'll call my brother, Rodney. He's a scholar. He's got to GCEs. The phone rang in the flat. Rodney picked it up, thinking it was Mickey Pierce playing another prank. Piss off, Mickey, Rodney shouted. Rodney, it's Jonathan Ross. Dell's voice came through, frantic. I need the answer. The opera, Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Rodney froze. The pressure was immense. Ravel. It's Ravel. Dell. 100%. He says Ravel. Dell told the studio. The audience held its breath. Jonathan Ross looked at the card. I'm sorry, Derek. That was the wrong answer. It was Rodrigo. The silence in the flat was deafening. Dell's face on the screen went from golden hope to gray despair. He had lost everything. Again. Chapter 8, the final twist. Dell returned to the flat late that night, his velvet blazer looking limp. I was so certain, Rodney moaned, head in his hands. I could have sworn it was Ravel. Ravel makes shoes, you dipstick. Dell snapped, though his heart wasn't in it. You've upset Raquel. You've upset the nation. I'm going to be the most embarrassed man in Britain. Just then, the phone rang. Don't answer it, Dell said. It'll be Mickey Pierce. I'll get it, Raquel said. She picked it up, listened for a moment, and her eyes went wide. Dell, it's the producer of Gold Rush. Dell took the phone, his expression cynical. Yeah, what do you want? The podium. I'll pay for the damage when I'm back on my feet. Then he stopped. He listened. His eyes began to twinkle. No, really, a mistake. It was Ravel. He looked at Rodney. He looked at the family. He says there was a mistake in the research. Ravel did write it. I can take the 50,000 pounds and come back for the final. The room erupted. Rodney jumped up, knocking over a lamp. Raquel hugged Dell. I knew it, Rodney shouted. I knew my GCEs wouldn't let me down. Dell laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated Peckham joy. He looked out the window at the dark towers of the estate. See, Rodney, what did I tell you? This time next NCM, we really will be millionaires. Chapter 9, the verification of a miracle. The morning after the phone call from the BBC felt different. Usually, the sunrise over Peckham was greeted by the screech of a distant police siren or the aggressive rattling of a neighbor's milk bottles. But today, for Derek Trotter, the light filtered through the thin curtains of Nelson Mandela House like a celestial spotlight. Raquel, where's my good tie? Dell shouted from the bedroom, the sound muffled by a mouthful of toothpaste. The one with the silk weave. I can't go back to Television Center looking like a casual laborer. Raquel walked in, holding a steaming mug of tea and looking more skeptical than a tax inspector at an offshore bank. Dell, are you sure this wasn't a prank? You know what Mickey Pierce is like. He once convinced Denzel he'd won a trip to space. Dell paused his frantic search through a drawer full of mismatched socks and knockoff watches. Mickey Pierce doesn't have the vocal range of a BBC producer, Raquel. This was official. He said the researchers got their knickers in a twist. Ravel wrote the music, and apparently, the opera l'enfant at Les Sortilèges is his masterpiece. Rodney was right for once in his life. God knows how, but he was right. Rodney appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his managing director suit, which still smelled faintly of mothballs. I told you, Del, I studied the French Impressionists for my GCE. Well, I read the back of an album cover in a charity shop. But it counts. My executive intuition is back online. Yeah, well, don't get too big for your boots, Rogers. Del snorted, finally finding his tie under a pile of independent tax forms. One correct answer doesn't make you Einstein. Now, we need to verify this. If I turn up at the studio and it is Mickey Pierce, I'll have to move to the coast just to escape the shame. The verification process involved a tense 20 minutes on the phone. Del spoke in his most cultured voice, the one he usually reserved for wine waiters and debt collectors. By the time he hung up, he was beaming. It's on. Proof. Next Thursday, the grand final. 100,000 pounds is back on the table. But as the initial euphoria began to settle, a shadow passed over the room. It was the shadow of a very large, very persistent debt. Del, Rodney said quietly, looking at the mountain of paperwork on the sideboard. 50,000 covers the inland revenue. But if you win the 100, that's the house. That's a new life for Damien. That's Cassandra and me finally getting our own place. Del nodded, his expression uncharacteristically serious. I know, Rodney, this isn't just about trading anymore. It's about survival. We've been up and we've been down. But this time, we're playing for the championship. Chapter 10, Executive Stress and the Nag's Head Summit. The news of Dul's reprieve spread through Peckham like a wildfire in a firework factory. By the time the brothers arrived at the Nag's Head that evening, the celebration was already in full swing despite the fact that they hadn't actually won the final yet. Oi, here he is. Boykie's voice cut through the smoke and the clinking of glasses. He was leaning against the bar, his wife Marlene looking spectacular in a leopard print coat that probably cost more than the Trotter's van. The man who knew more than the BBC, or rather, the man whose brother stumbled upon the truth by accident. It wasn't an accident. Boykie, Rodney insisted, adjusted his glasses. It was a calculated retrieval of stored knowledge. Retrieval. Boykie laughed, a dry, wheezing sound. I've heard you retrieve information before, Rodney, like the time you told us the Great Wall of China was built to keep the Scots out. That was a long time ago. Rodney snapped. Leave him alone, Boykie, Marlene said, leaning over to peck Del on the cheek. I'm proud of you. Del, you've had a rough time of it lately. If anyone deserves a bit of luck, it's you lot. Del ordered a round of succulent drinks, mostly pineapple juice for himself, as he was in training for the final. Thanks, Marlene. It's been a long road, but the tide is turning. I can feel it in my bones. It's like the changing of the seasons and the tides of the sea. You sound like a bad Hallmark card, Del. Sid grumbled from behind the bar. Just make sure you don't kick the podium over this time. The BBC sent me a letter asking for your address to bill you for repairs. Tell them I've moved to the Sultan of Brunei's palace. Del winked. Trigger wandered over, holding a pint of bitter and looking more confused than usual. All right, Del, I heard you're going back on the telly. Are you going to be on the bill? I like the one with the sirens. No, Trig, the quiz show. Gold Rush. Oh, well, if you see that Jonathan Ross, tell him I hear voices. He might give me a job in the audience. As the night wore on, the weight of expectation began to press down on Del. It wasn't just the money. It was the pride. The Trotter name had been dragged through the bankruptcy courts. They had been the laughingstock of the estate. Winning this wasn't just about the cash. It was about the comeback. You okay, Del? Rodney asked as they walked back to the van later that night. Yeah, Rodney. Just thinking. We've had a lot of this time next year's, haven't we? This might actually be the one. It will be, Del. Just don't mention King Edward when they ask about potatoes this time. Chapter 11, the final countdown. The week leading up to the final was a blur of executive preparation. Rodney had taken his role as managing director to heart, creating a revision schedule for Del that involved everything from the history of the Ottoman Empire to the chemical composition of a digestive biscuit. Rodney, I'm a trader, not a university professor, Del complained, throwing a book on Greek mythology onto the sofa. I don't need to know who the god of thunder was. I just need to know how to spot a bargain. Knowledge is power, Del, Rodney replied, pacing the room with a clipboard. If they ask you a question about the Parthenon, you can't just say it's a Greek restaurant in Streatham. Meanwhile, Cassandra and Raquel were dealing with their own executive stress. I'm worried about them, Raquel, Cassandra whispered as they sat in the kitchen, watching the brothers argue in the living room. Rodney's so focused on this managing director thing, he's starting to believe his own hype. And Del looks tired. Raquel nodded, stirring a pot of stew. He is tired. Cassandra, he's been carrying this family for 30 years. He thinks if he wins this, he can finally rest. But men like Del don't know how to rest. They just find a bigger deal to chase. Thursday arrived with a torrential downpour that seemed to mock the title of the show. There was no gold in the sky over London today, only slate gray clouds. The drive to Television Center was silent. Rodney gripped the steering wheel of the Capri, which Del had let him drive for morale purposes, his knuckles white. Del sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the passing city. You ready, Del? Ready as I'll ever be, Rodney. Just remember, if I get stuck, I'm calling you. And don't you dare mention Mickey Pierce. The studio was even more intimidating the second time around. The audience was packed. The cameras were buzzing, and Jonathan Ross looked even more polished than before. Welcome back to Gold Rush, Jonathan announced, the applause echoing in the rafters. And a very special welcome back to the man of the hour, the man who proved the researchers wrong, Derek Trotter. Dell walked out, his velvet blazer gleaming under the studio lights. He looked at the camera, flashed his most winning smile, and for a moment, the bankruptcy, the tax debt, and the hiccups didn't exist. He was Del Boy. He was the king of Peckham, and he was here to claim his throne. Chapter 12, the 100,000-pound question. The round-by-round progression was a masterclass in Trotter luck. Dell navigated the questions about 16th century art thanks to a tip from a man who sold frames in Lewisham and the history of wine, which he knew by taste, if not by date. By the time he reached the final stage, the tension in the room was palpable. Raquel and Cassandra were clutching each other in the front row. Rodney was standing in the wings, his heart beating like a drum. "This is it, Derek," Jonathan said, the lights dimming until only the gold path was illuminated. "You have 50,000 pounds in the bank. You can walk away now, pay your debts, and live a comfortable life. Or you can answer the final question for 100,000 pounds. The audience was silent. Dell looked at Raquel. He saw the hope in her eyes. He looked at Rodney. He saw the brother who had stood by him through every failed scheme and every empty promise. "I've spent my life walking away from things when they got too hot, Jonathan," Dell said, his voice steady. "But not today. We're trotters. We don't walk. We trade. Let's have the question." The audience erupted. Jonathan Ross waited for the silence to return. "For 100,000 pounds, here is your question. In the world of maritime history, the phrase the Ancient Mariner refers to a famous poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. But what was the specific name of the ship the mariner sailed upon?" The room went cold. Dole's mind raced. Ships, maritime history, Uncle Albert. During the war, he could hear Albert's voice, the stories he dismissed as wartime sagas, the hours spent listening to the old man drone on about the sea. "I know this," Dell whispered. "I actually know this." He thought of the funeral, the wrong funeral for Bunny Warren. He thought of the monogram brandy glass. He thought of the man who had been around the world more times than a Russian satellite. "It's not a trick," Dell muttered to himself. "It's a memory." He looked at the camera. "Jonathan, the ship didn't have a name. It was just a ship, but the poem describes it as a specter bark or a ghost ship. However, if you're looking for the name of the vessel that Coleridge based the story on, it was a ship called the Fortune." The silence stretched. Rodney was holding his breath so hard he was turning blue. Jonathan Ross looked at the card. He looked at Dell. He smiled. "Derek Trotter, that is absolutely correct. You've won 100,000 pounds." The explosion of noise was deafening. Raquel and Cassandra charged onto the stage. Rodney followed, hugging Dell with a force that nearly knocked both of them over. You did it, Dell. You actually did it. Dell stood in the middle of the chaos, the golden confetti falling around him like rain. He was laughing, crying, and shouting all at once. See, Rodney, what did I tell you? This time next year. No, wait, this year. We're millionaires. Chapter 13, The Morning After the Gold. The return to Peckham was not in a yellow van, but in a chauffeur-driven limousine provided by the BBC. As they pulled up to Nelson Mandela House, a crowd of neighbors had gathered. Denzel was there, Trigger was waving a broom, and even Boyke looked genuinely impressed. But as the party in the flat began to wind down, reality started to creep back in. The check arrives in 30 days, Rodney said, sitting at the kitchen table with a calculator. 50,000 to the inland revenue, 10,000 for the legal fees. That leaves us with 40,000. 40,000, Dell asked, pouring a very large cognac. That's a lot of money, Rodney. It's not 6 million, but it's a start. We can move. We can get you that house. Rodney looked at Cassandra. She smiled and shook her head. Dell, she said, taking a seat. We talked about it. Rodney and we don't want to move yet. We want to use the money to restart the firm. Properly this time. No knockoff watches, no exploding dolls. A real consultancy. Dell looked at them, surprised. Restart the firm. Under Rodney's management? Yes, Rodney said, his voice firm. Managing Director Rodney Trotter. But I'm going to need a chairman. Someone with experience. Someone who knows how to close a deal. Dell felt a lump in his throat. He looked at Raquel, who was holding Damien as he slept on the sofa. Chairman Derek Trotter, Dell whispered. I like the sound of that. It's got Laboratory Garney. Ray Sondiater, Dell, Rodney corrected gently. Whatever. They sat in the quiet of the flat, the neon sign of the estate flickering outside. They weren't millionaires anymore. The gold from the studio had already been accounted for by the ghosts of their past mistakes. But for the first time in years, they weren't running. They were standing still, and they were together. You know, Rodney, Dell said, looking at a photo of their mum on the mantel. I think she'd be proud. We kept our promise. We stuck together. Yeah, Dell, we did. But listen, Dell leaned in, his eyes sparking with that old familiar fire. I was talking to the driver of that limo on the way home. He knows a bloke in Croydon who's got a consignment of slightly damp, but perfectly functional, industrial-sized fans. With the summer coming up, we could make a killing. Dell, Rodney groaned. No, listen, it's a guaranteed winner this time next year. As the lights of Nelson Mandela House faded into the night, the dream lived on. Because in the world of the Trotters, the goalpost might move, and the millions might vanish, but the hustle the beautiful, chaotic, hopeful hustle would never die. Chapter 14, The Executive Suite. The new official headquarters of Trotter's Independent Traders Phase 2 was, as Rodney put it, a work in progress. In reality, it was still the living room of Nelson Mandela House, but with a few significant alterations. Rodney had insisted on buying a second-hand mahogany desk that was so large it required the removal of the sofa to fit into the corner. It commands respect, Del, Rodney said, adjusting his swivel chair, which squeaked with every movement. When a client walks in, hypothetically speaking, they need to see a man of stature, a man of administration. Del, leaning against the sideboard with a toothpick in his mouth, looked at the desk and then at Rodney. Rodney, you look like a primary school kid who's accidentally wandered into the headmaster's office. And where am I supposed to sit? On the floor. You're the chairman, Del. You're mobile. You're the face of the company in the field. You're the outreach. The outreach? That's a fancy word for the bloke who carries the boxes, isn't it? Del snorted. Anyway, never mind the mahogany. Have you seen the fans? The fans, all 200 of them, were currently occupying the balcony, covered by a suspicious-looking tarp. They were the industrial-sized units Del had mentioned, and they did indeed smell faintly of canal water. We need a marketing strategy, Rodney, Del said, his eyes lighting up. I've been thinking. Trotter's Turbo Chill. It sounds modern. It sounds aerodynamic. Del, we agreed. Proper consultancy. We're not selling damp fans from the balcony. Rodney slammed his hand on the desk, only to wince as a splinter caught his palm. We're supposed to be advising businesses on efficiency and growth. And what's more efficient than a workforce that isn't sweating like a glassblower's bottom? Del shot back. I've already made a call. There's a warehouse in Deptford. Their air conditioning has gone caput, and the foreman is a bloke I know called Greasy George. He's desperate. Rodney sighed, the managing director's facade cracking slightly. Greasy George, does he have a legitimate business license? He's got a van and a clipboard, Rodney. In Peckham, that's a conglomerate. Come on, put your executive suit on. We're going to do a deal. Chapter 15, The Great Fan Fiasco. The Deptford warehouse was a corrugated iron oven. Inside, 30 men were moving crates while the air shimmered with heat. Greasy George, a man whose forehead was permanently slick with perspiration, greeted them with the desperation of a drowning man. Del, thank God. It's 90 degrees in here and the union is threatening to walk out. George wiped his face with a rag that looked like it had been used to clean an engine. Don't you worry, George, Del said, draping an arm around him. The chairman and the managing director have arrived. Rodney, show him the brochure. Rodney reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper with Trotter's Turbo Chill written in felt tip pen. These are high-output, industrial-grade circulation units Mr. George designed for maximum atmospheric displacement. Will they cool the place down? George asked. Cool it. Dell laughed. George, by the time we've got these beauties humming, your blokes will be asking for thermal underwear. They're that powerful. They spent the next 3 hours hauling the fans from the van into the warehouse. As Rodney plugged the first unit in, he looked at the label on the back. It was in a language that looked vaguely Cyrillic. Dell, these fans, they're from 1974, and they're marked military surplus. Even better, Rodney, Army quality, built to last. Rodney flipped the switch. There was a low, guttural growl, like a hungry wolf. Then a screech that set every tooth in the warehouse on edge. Suddenly, the fan blades began to spin with terrifying velocity. A blast of air cool, but smelling strongly of old fish and diesel erupted from the unit. See, Dell shouted over the noise. Total displacement. Greasy George looked impressed. I'll take the lot. 100 quid each? George, Dell sighed, shaking his head. For a friend, 120. And that's because I like your face. They shook on it as the trotters drove away. Rodney was already doing the math in his head. 24,000 pounds. Dell, that's almost, well, after the cost of the fans, that's a 15,000 pound profit in a single afternoon. Told you, didn't I? Rogers. Dell beamed, slapping the dashboard of the Capri. The chairman knows his onions. But then Rodney looked in the rearview mirror. A cloud of black smoke was rising from the Diptford warehouse. Dell, why is George's warehouse smoking? It's just the dust, Rodney. The fans are so powerful, they're clearing the decades of grime. It's a cleaning service as well. We should have charged him more. Chapter 16, The Legacy. They didn't go back to the warehouse. They didn't answer the phone for 3 days. Apparently, the military surplus fans had a slight design flaw where the motors would overheat if run for more than 10 minutes, and the turbo chill had eventually turned into a turboflam. Fortunately, Greasy George had managed to douse the small fires with a fire extinguisher before any real damage was done. But the deal was definitely off. At least we got the deposit, Dell muttered, sitting on the balcony as the sun set. We had to give it back. Dell, Rodney said, standing beside him. And we had to pay for George's eyebrows to be professionally trimmed since the sparks took most of them off. They stood in silence, looking out over the flickering lights of the city. The 40,000 pounds was still in the bank, safe and sound. The Phase 2 office was currently being used by Damien to build a fortress out of cardboard boxes. You know, Rodney, Dell said, his voice soft, we're not millionaires. We're probably never going to be millionaires again. Not the real kind, anyway. I know, Dell. But look at us. We've got the flat. We've got the family. We've even got a managing director who knows how to use a stapler. Dell looked at his brother and smiled. We're the luckiest blokes in Peckham. Rodney looked at the yellow van parked in the lot below. It looked small and battered, but it was there. Yeah, I suppose we are. But listen, Dell said, his eyes beginning to sparkle again. I was talking to a bloke in the pub today. He's got a connection in Singapore. Apparently, there's a surplus of slightly mislabeled, but perfectly edible, canned ham. With Christmas coming up, we could. Dell! No, listen, it's a gold mine. Rodney, this time next year. The argument faded into the night air, a familiar melody that had echoed through the halls of Nelson Mandela House for decades. The millions might have come and gone, and the deals might have sizzled out, but as long as the sun rose over Peckham, the trotters would be there trading, laughing, and dreaming of the next big win. Bon mot. The yellow van might be old, and the engine might cough, but as long as there's a road ahead and a deal to be made, the trotters will always be driving, because they're not just traders, they're survivors, and in the heart of Peckham, that's the greatest fortune of all. The Trotter Chronicles, From Gold to Grit, a novelization by Gemini. Prologue, The Man in the Sharp Suit. The air in the office was thick with the scent of expensive mahogany and the faint, clinical aroma of high-end air purifiers. Justin, a man whose skin looked like it had been buffed by a professional at a Swiss spa, leaned back in his leather chair. He adjusted his glasses, looking at the two men sitting across from him. One of them, Derek Delboy Trotter, was a man who looked like he belonged in a very different kind of office one, with a calendar of a local garage on the wall and the lingering smell of cigar smoke and hopeful desperation. Dell was dressed in what he considered his business best, a suit that shimmered just a bit too much under the fluorescent lights, and enough gold jewelry to make a pirate blush. Next to him sat Rodney, younger, leaner, and perpetually looking like he had just realized he'd left the oven on at home. Rodney was sweating, not the confident sweat of an athlete, but the cold, clammy moisture of a man who knew his brother was about to say something that would embarrass them both for the next century. I've got all the basic details about your business career, Justin began, his voice smooth and devoid of any Peckham grit. But what I'd like to do is to get an insight into the real you, how you started, how you became so successful, but more importantly, your lives and your raison d'etre. Del Boy's eyes lit up. He didn't know what a raison d'etre was, but it sounded French, and in those world, French meant class. Oh, no, Del whispered to Rodney, Laboratory Garney. Rodney closed his eyes and prayed for the floor to open. It's not Laboratory Garney. Del, he hissed, he's asking for our reason for being. Exactly what I said. Prove. Del snapped back, before turning to Justin with a smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo and then charge him for the delivery? Well, Justin, where shall I start? Up to a few years ago, we were just very ordinary people living, well, very ordinary lives, weren't we, Rodney? And so the story began. A story of a watch found in a garage, a fortune made in an instant, and a fall so spectacular it made the Hindenburg look like a minor fender bender. Chapter 1, The Caribbean Dream. The sun over Barbados didn't just shine, it announced itself. It turned the turquoise water into a sheet of diamonds and the white sand into something so bright it hurt to look at without designer sunglasses, which, of course, the trotters were wearing. Only a few months prior, the trotters had been living in a council flat in Peckham, wondering if the hooky VCers they were selling would last through the first reel of Rambo. Then came the watch, an 18th century Harrison marine chronometer hidden in their garage for decades. It had sold at Sotheby's for £6.5 million. In an instant, Derek Trotter, the man who once sold one-legged turkeys at Christmas, was a multimillionaire. Look at this, Rodney, Dell had said, leaning over the balcony of their private villa. He was holding a glass of something blue with a miniature umbrella in it. Total luxury. This is what we were born for. Mange tout, Rodney, mange tout. Rodney was sitting in a hammock, trying to read a book on sociology, but failing because Cassandra kept applying sun cream to his back. It's a bit much, isn't it, Dell? I mean, 6 months ago we were sharing a bathroom with a leak that Uncle Albert called characterful. Characterful. It was a health hazard. Dell laughed. But look at us now. We've divvied the dosh up. We made sure Uncle Albert got a nice little drink, figuratively speaking, though knowing him, he's probably literally drinking most of it down on the coast with Elsie Partridge. They had been the kings of the island. They donated to charity mostly because Dell liked the gala dinners, and they invested. Oh, how they invested. Dell had met a man in a bar, a visionary, Dell called him. A con artist, Rodney had countered. The man spoke of Central American markets, of vibrant ventures, and emerging economies.